Hello, and welcome to basic OpenD6 character creation. By the end of this video, you should be able to create and play in the OpenD6 tabletop system. These are the OpenD6 main line of books. You have the original D6 system book, and then they released genre books sometime later for the D6 Space for Far Future, D6 Adventure for Modern, and D6 Fantasy for High Fantasy. This video is going to be taking examples from the D6 Adventure book. So we have two methods of character creation. We have point buy and dice distribution. If you opt for point buy, you have 79 points for a beginning character. One attribute die is 4 points. An attribute is like a stat. A skill die is 1 point. Your skills are under your attributes. And 1 point is 3 specialization dice. We'll talk about specialization dice when it comes up later. Advantages, special abilities cost points, and disadvantages give your points back. And if you want something a little more limiting, dice distribution limits your attribute dice to 18. It limits your starting skill dice at 7. And 1 skill die is still 3 specialization dice, so you have to give up one of your skill dice to get specialization dice. Your advantages, special abilities will cost skill dice, and disadvantages will give skill dice back. Advantage, special ability, disadvantage costs at character creation. Advantages and disadvantages will cost or give points back based on their rank. So we have the example here. Authority, rank 3, will cost you 3 skill dice or creation points. Now special abilities are a little less forward than that. The first rank costs the number given in skill dice or creation points, and higher ranks cost depends on the rarity of special abilities in your world. So the game master determines how much each higher rank in a special ability will be. So I have an example here for Life Drain. Life Drain costs 5 skill dice or creation points to obtain 1 rank. Each rank after can cost 5 more skill dice creation points if uncommon, or 1 more if common. To put that into perspective, if you wanted 3 ranks in Life Drain and an uncommon world, it would be 15 skill dice. And if you wanted 3 ranks in a world where special abilities were common, it would only be 7. So it's a pretty big difference. Limitations at character creation. Humans. The limitations for point buy and dice distribution are virtually identical, so we're just going to go over it once. OpenD6 is a very human-centric system. D6 Adventure assumes you're going to be playing humans, but there are other species available, and game masters can even create their own species if they want to. Attributes, min-max. All attributes, minimum is 1D, except for extra normal. Extra normal's minimum is 0D. And this is because most characters are not going to have an extra normal attribute. But if you have a character that has an extra normal attribute, the maximum is still 5D. 3D above the attribute is the limit for any skill, and 3D above the skill for any specialization. So you can't just put all, have like 70 dice in one skill, be like really good at picking locks. There's a limit. Now, point buy is the only one that had a limitation on disadvantages. You can only take 10 additional points from disadvantages. I didn't find anything for dice distribution. However, you should just use your common sense. Don't let them get 15 or 20 points in disadvantages. This is an important thing to go over. Even though I'm not going to be doing it in this video, it's an important thing for you to know. 1 die is 3 pips, and it applies to every die. So attribute dice, skill dice, specialization dice, damage dice, all of it. 3 pips. So I have an example here. 5D is left to distribute between 2 attributes. And all of these are valid ways of splitting up the die. As long as when you add the pips and the whole dice together, you still get 5, it's valid. Our first character is Henry the Bouncer. These are his attributes and skills. These are the attributes that are in D6 Adventure. The extra normal is at 0D, so that doesn't matter. Henry is a brawler. I gave him 6D in brawling, and I also gave him 5D in melee. Now this is important because if you follow the rules as written, characters cannot use melee weapons if they do not have the melee combat skill. So keep that in mind. Henry the Bouncer, advantages, disadvantages, and special abilities. I didn't give him any advantages, but I did give him a special ability at rank 1, just a +1 to armor value. All this means is that all incoming damage to Henry is reduced by 1 right off the top, before anything else. Doesn't matter if he's wearing armor or not. Disadvantages. I gave him the Rude Hindrance at rank 2. This is what it's described as in the book. +2 to Charm, Con, and Persuasion difficulties. Since the Rude Hindrance is rank 2, it gives us 2 skill dice, and the rank 1 special ability takes 1. And here are the rest of the stats. Now, you can either have wounds, body points, or you can use both. If you use wounds, it's 6 levels. And if you have body points, you roll your physique and add 20. I rolled my physique and got 12 and added 20 to get 32. Strength damage. This is the damage that a character can do with just their body. So punches, kicks, headbutts. 3D. Henry packs a wallop. And the way you decide that is you divide the physique or lifting die code by 2 and round up. I have here, just to remind us, that Henry does have a 5D in lifting. 5 divided by 2 and rounded up is 3. Move 10 meters around. And this is standard for all humans. Unless you have an advantage or a disadvantage or a special ability that changes your move, it's going to be 10. Funds, 3D. And I have here that your stats can be affected, or your stats can affect your funds. However, it's only really low or really high stats. So most of your characters are going to be 3D. And what this is this represents how much money your character can get a hold of at a specific time, like immediately, basically. And instead of prices, the book gives you difficulties. So if you want to buy something, you roll against the difficulty, and if you match or get higher than the difficulty, you can buy it. This was designed to save the game master from having to come up with prices and everything. But if you don't want to do that, if your game master wants to use cash and actually put prices on things, the book recommends 150 times the funds attribute, in this case 3, per week. So if you use dollars, it would be $450 a week. Character points and fate points are pretty easy. New characters start with 5 character points, and new characters start with 1 fate point. And here's the next character, Oliver the Private Investigator, specialization dice. So Oliver has a coordination of 4D. I give him 1 dice in marksmanship. Marksmanship is the skill you use for all firearms. And then I sacrifice a skill dice to get 3 specialization dice. And I give him 1D extra in pistols, 1D extra in rifles, and then for the other specialization dice, I give him melee combat baton. Notice that Oliver does not have the melee combat skill. But you can take specializations in skills you do not have, and the game treats them as separate skills. So even though he has melee combat baton, he can't use other melee weapons. This is literally the only melee weapon he can use besides a pointy stick, like we described earlier. Viola the Magician, magic attribute. In D6 Adventure, there are 2 extra-normal attributes, psionics and magic, and each one of these has their own skills underneath them that you can use your skill dice on if you have access to them. So she used 2 attribute dice to get magic, and 1 of her skill dice to increase her conjuration to 3D. How many spells? Unfortunately, this answer was not in the genre books, that I could find anyway, but the short answer is 4. If you're in a world where every town has at least 1 magic user, then it's 4. 1 or 2 spells if you're in a world where magic is rare or maybe even considered to be non-existent. But if your world is overflowing with magic, 8 or even 10 spells would be fine for a character to start with. And finally, we have Viola's magic spells. We have Conjure Creature. It's a conjuration spell, so she has to roll at least a 7 using her conjuration skill. It lasts 5 minutes, and it conjures a creature naturally weighing 3.5 kilograms or less. Some examples. You have to have interacted with a creature before to conjure it, and you may dismiss it at any time before the 5 minutes end. Then we have Flash Fire, another conjuration spell, difficulty 6, 1 second, range of 15 meters. Jet of smoke and flame erupts from any point within range you can see, does 2d damage to creatures. The reason that I wanted to talk about these is that I didn't pull this difficulty out of a hat. This difficulty, D6 Fantasy and D6 Adventure both have a method to create spells in there, and they're really, and it's a nice mathematical formula. It looks daunting at first, but it's actually not that bad. And there you go. That's the end. You know everything you need to know now to create at least a basic character. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you play this game. I'm going to be putting links down either in the description or in a pinned comment to the books so that you can download them and at least give them a look.